afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday Times Roundtable, where each week we engage in conversation around current global issues, trends, problems, and opportunities that are of interest to you. Our weekly Tuesday Times Roundtable is made possible through a formal partnership with the New York Times. This partnership also brings a New York Times guest speaker to FIU annually and provides you guys, FIU students, faculty, and staff with free digital access to the newspaper. I am Sherry Beeson, your host and Senior Program Coordinator for the Office of Global Learning Initiatives. With me is Anna Prado, also from the Office of Global Learning, and she's going to help facilitate today's meeting, especially by watching the chat. If you are just now joining us, I'd like to remind you to keep your mic muted during the presentation. If you feel comfortable doing so, please do turn your camera on, especially when you ask a question. However, we understand if you don't, and we are recording today's session. By the way, in case you thought I forgot, I want you to know Taylor Sines, our communications guru, is behind the scenes, and she sends you announcements regarding all things global and your Global Learning Medallion newsletter, The Glow. We do have some special announcements for you at the end of today's session, so stick around with us. We want you to hear those. Now it is my pleasure to introduce today's guest moderator, Soraya Bagheri, Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of Electo. Electo is a civic technology company built to democratize how we get informed. Soraya is a first-generation college graduate with civil and common law degrees. She has experience working with global law firms, international organizations, and the United Nations at the grassroots level across 4 continents. Prior to her legal career, Soraya was trained as an educator. During her time in education, she focused on social and economic development programs, and Soraya is responsible for scaling Electo nationwide to meet the needs of its rapidly growing user base. And before I say any more, I'm going to share my screen with you. I want you guys to see what it is I'm talking about. So in just a moment, Soraya is going to talk to us about technological innovation and inclusive path forward. But before then, I want you to know she's passionate about youth empowerment and gender equality. And she advocates for more diversity in STEM and the tech industry. Soraya has worked for over a decade on projects aimed at empowerment of youth in communities throughout the MENA region and North America. Through Electo, she has developed a voice for minority communities to collaborate and innovate. Soraya now lives in Washington, D.C., where Electo is headquartered. If you would, please join me in welcoming Soraya. Yay! And you can take it away from here.
Great. Thank you so much, Sherry. And I'm so happy to be here with everyone at FIU. I've had a few opportunities to meet FIU students here in DC before the pandemic and then over Zoom since the pandemic started. And it's always just so wonderful to be with everyone. So I have a presentation. I will open it up, but just as a reminder to everyone, the topic that I'm touching on today is technological innovation and inclusive path forward. And in doing so, maybe I'll start a little bit with a background about what Alecto is and what we're doing at Alecto as a tech company to be more inclusive. And then I'll touch a little bit on the New York Times article that was chosen for today. And then of course, open up for questions towards the end. Let me share my screen. Give me one moment. Perfect. So Sherry, you already gave a great intro, but I also have my co-founder here on the slide as well. But just a little bit about what we're doing is, we we started as a result of our founder, Naeem Khanjani. It was his first. He's actually also my husband, and so it's a husband and wife company that we started. And he came about the idea of Electo because it was his first year that he was eligible to vote in 2020, because he came to the US as a refugee about 8 years ago. And so we started thinking about how we access information, where we get our information from, and how we can have access to information that's from a nonpartisan source. So one of the problems that we noticed in the way that we were trying to analyze information was that a lot of the data sources that we were looking at were unstructured and disparate. We wanted to have information on the legislative and regulatory activity of elected officials so that we could make an assessment on who we wanted to vote for. And it was time consuming and laborious. And then we found out that there were existing platforms that existed, but none of the platforms were comparable to the one that we had in mind that we wanted to create. There were professional platforms that existed for public affairs teams. And then there was something lacking for those, everyday Americans that wanted to have access to information. So one of the solutions that we were thinking of was to create a product that had less manual work for nonprofits, advocacy groups, and organizations in getting their information. And we wanted to have modern technology, something that was AI driven. And I'll get into kind of the way that we were thinking about leveraging technology with our product. And we wanted something that was faster and smarter than existing products that existed. So what we came up with were two products. So initially we came out with our app. So the Electo app is available to everyone. It's available on iOS and Android. Please feel free to download the app. What we do is basically we aggregate information on elected officials, what they post on social media, so you can see, instead of having to follow them on social media and being targeted by ads and by bots, you can follow them through the app. And then when you click on their names, you're also able to see their political records, which is all based on official sources. So we don't create any content, we don't create any data, we don't run algorithms on the app either. You can decide who you want to kind of focus, who you want to follow. Basically your general news feed, you see everyone, and then you can have favorites where you can follow those individuals that you want to follow to get your information. But we also have a premium product, which we're building out, that is subscription based, and it's for professional use. And one of the reasons why we wanted to create it was because we noticed that there wasn't equal access to this professional product for organizations and advocacy groups and nonprofits. The existing products that did exist were too expensive and inaccessible, and we wanted to level out the playing field for a lot of organizations that just didn't have access to information that's a little bit more than the app. So more on the regulations, if they want to track a particular regulation, if they want to track a particular legislation, or work as teams in a collaborative environment to see how they're influencing legislation on the Hill, they can do that by using Electo Analytics. So it's just an image, a graphic of what Electo Analytics looks like, and this is of the app. But what I want to get into today is, as we have technological advances, how are we having an inclusive path forward as technology companies? So not just Electo, how are we thinking about it as a society? And how can we have a healthy approach to any innovation, regardless of whether it's technological or not? And one thing that we notice is that, one challenge that we're facing today is the speed of technological innovation. So often we don't have that time to reflect and analyze and consult as a society on the implications of technology and on innovation, and what are the long-term effects of a particular innovation or technology that we're bringing about. And so we often hear about the economic benefits that are generated by new technologies, which are very important, but how do we balance them with the needs that we have, assessing the merit and the harm that a particular technology could have on any generation, so we mean even on the younger generation. And I think one thing that we've noticed within the pandemic is that we've had a greater reliance on technology to carry out basic tasks and to remain connected, such as Zoom. We've really been relying on products like Zoom and other platforms to be able to stay connected, because as humans, we want to be connected and have those social interactions. And those that don't have access to internet, or maybe don't have access to certain technologies, it resulted in their further isolation. So there's this divide. And one thing that as a team, we think about is that, tech has been a source of many advancements. It's amplified the capacities that we can have as humans. But like any tool, it can be used productively or destructively. And there are always ethical considerations around the design and the use of technologies. And one example I thought of to bring about is agricultural innovation. So with agricultural innovation, we can think about sustainable technologies. We can think about environmentally friendly methods. We can think about food security and how we can increase it through agricultural innovation. But when we're only thinking about profit and how we can increase profit with that kind of innovation, sometimes it results in exploitation of workers or natural resources, and it can deepen inequality. So really, technology is a way for us to flourish, and I think it's really about thinking about how are we being inclusive in the way that we're moving forward with technologies. So as many of you might know, that sometimes there are various forms of social bias or inequality that kind of seeps or becomes embedded within design or applications or within technology, and then unintentionally this is then adopted by others. And so one thing that we really want to do at Alecto, and then one thing we're really thinking about is that those decision makers and those individuals creating the code, deciding the ways forward with our technology, we really want it to be a diverse subset of society, and thinking about how can we have diversity? What does diversity mean? How does that actually bring to the table more diverse ideas, that's going to bring more innovation, that's going to represent the larger community that we're trying to bring technology to. And so I think we can recognize that technologies open new opportunities, and we really have to think about, just even as a society, how we can have an honest examination of the norms underlying the way that we're creating technologies. So one more thing that I wanted to touch upon is just about even how we can create as a society these processes for learning about technology at a global level, and maybe at a societal level, at a community level, and thinking about these different types of technology, and maybe even having these different studies about diverse groups and when they create technology, what impacts it has on society. So I think accommodating these diversity of voices really has an impact in the types of technologies that we create. And like I mentioned, there's, at the national level, there could be steps that are taken to understand digital technologies and how it can be regulated, or how we can have an expression of a broader community that's very inclusive. And then also transcending national boundaries, how that would look like when there are international policies, when they're guided by principles of justice and universality, when we have regulations in place that allow for there to be more diversity among decision makers, so that we have responsible technologies that are created, and also creating these spaces that accommodate a diversity of voices. So I think that's one of the greatest changes that we're going to start to see that will actually impact the technologies that are built. And I think one thing that I wanted to draw upon that was mentioned in the article that was shared from the New York Times was that the tech industry has really struggled broadly with unequal representation and pay for women in particular, but also of different minority groups. And I think that right now there really is this lens on the technology industry and many other industries as well, for there to be more equal representation. And one quote that I wanted to touch upon, and I think is again on that same article, that where they were highlighting some unequal representation within a particular tech company. And the quote was, "Without senior executive engagement, diversity is considered a secondary nice to have rather than a priority for an organization." So it's really important at that senior executive level for there to be diversity. And I don't think it's just, something that's nice or something to report about, but really we can see even at Electo, when we're coming to the table, when we have these people that come from minority backgrounds, we have a refugee, we have multiple women on our advisory board, and people of different backgrounds, how that brings a diversity of thoughts, a diversity of opinions, and really helps enrich the experience that we have at Alecto. So I'd love to open it up, open the floor up for questions. I wanted to touch just upon our experience at Electo in thinking critically about the way that we're creating technology and how we're building our team as a young startup, and a bit about how we were thinking about how we were creating Electo. And maybe one anecdote I can also share is, when we were really thinking about how we want to be very inclusive, it went down to even the colors that we're using on our app. How are we being inclusive and kind of the maybe the feelings that people have when they use our app? How can we make sure the wordings that we use or the description, the way that we describe our product is inclusive and also is very clear and concise in the way that we're explaining what we're doing. And so really with every decision, we're looking at it from a lens of diversity, and we're trying, and I think we're learning every day, and we're learning from, these spaces where we have excellent questions that usually come about and makes us think even more. I don't think we have all the answers, but I think what's really nice about working at a startup is that there's so much that can change, and there's so much that we can quickly implement new learning and continue to change up what we're doing. And so I'd love to take on any questions. It can be about entrepreneurship. It can be how I became, as a woman founder, what it's like, about anything that I chatted about, or even about the New York Times article. But yeah, I'd love to open the floor up to any questions.
Hi, my name is Vania Redondo. I wanted to thank you for coming and presenting. It was a great presentation. And I actually would love, you inspire me a lot. I would love to be an entrepreneur. I'd like to develop an app. So regarding that, how did you start? Like, what's the first step that you take? How, because I don't know anything about coding. So how, I presume you might, or you might not. How? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. No, that's a great question. And actually, what's really funny is that I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. And I think I was more of the traditional sense that, I went to law school and I was a lawyer, very comfortable as a lawyer, and didn't really think, I had that background in education. And I think that I never thought that I would end up becoming an entrepreneur. And I think it was really just, that experience that I had with Naeem, my co-founder, who himself is more of an entrepreneur, has more of that entrepreneurial mindset and has an MBA, and was thinking more about kind of always trying to find a solution to a problem. And so one thing that I'll definitely ask you to do is that if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to create something, I think you should look at it from the lens, what is an issue or a problem that you're noticing in society or something that's around you, and what could that solution be, instead of just hypothetically thinking, I want to create an app. So I think once you find that solution, what it is you want to create, I think the sky's the limit. There's so much that you're able to do once you start to think critically. And I think when you're trying to find the solution, I think you should also be consulting with others. Again, that diversity point comes to mind, because you might think you have a solution to a problem, but it might look different from someone else's point of view. And really thinking critically about what it is that you're trying to provide as a solution, and then start taking classes about learning to code, maybe partnering with other students that maybe know how to code, and try to think about, a small prototype or an idea and how you can build more and more on top of it. And I think the more you work on something, the more you find out whether you're passionate about it or not. And you start growing this team of trusted individuals that are also passionate about a product, and slowly it becomes something. And you start bringing more and more people on, maybe investors, maybe you're a nonprofit with the product that you're creating. So there's so many different avenues. And I think just to be an entrepreneur, you have to start turning your entrepreneurial mindset on and start thinking about how you're going to create a solution to a particular problem, and then sticking to it and trying to innovate. But I hope that answered your question. But if you have any follow-on questions, feel free to ask.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Actually, the app is to help stray dogs back in my home country that I have the school mechanism. I hope it really works. So thank you so much. I will definitely begin networking, which is actually what works.
For sure. Yeah, no, that sounds great. And I wish you the best of luck. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. So I wanted to mention that to everyone that's on this call. If we don't get to questions today, feel free to add me on LinkedIn, ask any questions. If you need support, I'm happy to support.
Thank you.
So Soraya, if you don't mind, I have some questions about how you design the app in order to create that kind of inclusivity. I'm really surprised by the fact that we have choices in the app, like we can decide things, which I'm so surprised by. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what inspired you to give so much choice to the users, and why do you think other companies haven't gone this route?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, it's really hard with startups and with apps, because I think one of the reasons why we don't see that choice as much is because a lot of these companies need to survive and they need to generate revenue. And a lot of the ways in which revenue is generated is through, running ads, creating these ways, these addictive kind of things within apps or within products, so that the individual keeps coming back. And then it becomes less about the individual that's using it. I think it's less about that product. The individual becomes the product. You're the one that has to keep coming back so that you can generate revenue so that that company can survive. But one of the ways that we were thinking about our product is that actually the app was more of a social impact project that we were doing. We're not generating, we're not selling anyone's data. We're not running ads. We don't want people to stay in it for an indefinite point of time. We want them to come in, get the information they need, and they can leave. We're not trying to draw people in because we're not generating revenue from the app. And our focus is the analytical platform that we've built, that advocacy groups, public affairs teams, governments are using. That's more affordable than a lot of the other products that do exist, but it allows us to generate revenue so that we can be a healthy company, and also allows us to ensure that the app can continue to work. And it's kind of the social impact arm of the work that we're doing at Alecto.
So you mentioned some challenges to getting getting Electo up and running, but so I'm wondering, Washington, D.C. can be a kind of adversarial place for, in some situations. Did y'all have anyone that was particularly, challenging what you wanted to do as being something that is needed, or, that people would use, like any kind of like picking at what you were doing before you could even get off the ground kind of thing?
One thing that was really important for us, which I think was very different to what so I'm not from, we had moved to Washington, so I hadn't been in Washington very long before we ended up launching the app. But one thing that was really important to both my co-founder and I was that we wanted to be nonpartisan. And I think that sometimes that's not something common that you would hear, especially in Washington. And we had, a very clear explanation as to why we wanted to be nonpartisan, that we really wanted everyone to see, when you go on the app, you see all your elected officials, you see all the updates, they're all in chronological order. So if a particular event happens somewhere in the US and you want to see what elected officials are saying, you see what everyone is saying. And what we wanted to do is that, we want to have that space where everyone can see what all elected officials are saying. And we didn't want our users to be siloed into a particular corner, and to really assess and start thinking with their own mind. For example, if they want to see what, if there's a tweet from a particular elected official, they can see how much engagement that tweet has had. So how many retweets or how many likes, but they won't see what the comments are, because usually you get bogged down and you go in the comments and it starts, becoming into something else. And our purpose is we really just want to have that information that's straight from the source for users to see. If they want to click on it and go to Twitter, they can do that. And surprisingly, it was very well received, when we brought this, across the aisle for, individuals of, they're on the spectrum of which way they leaned. And it was very well received that we were, at the end of the day, creating a product that whoever it is that they, is their elected official or from their particular party, were represented on our app. And we don't create content. We don't create even bios the way that we were thinking about. Initially we thought about, do we display bios on individuals? But we don't want any type of bias to seep into the way that we were designing the product. And so surprisingly, very well received and still well received. And so it's been a really great journey so far.
Remember, if you guys have a question, you can definitely post that in the chat. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your video with us, we understand, but this is definitely an open forum. So I'm wondering, did it get harder to curate all the information that was coming out around the recent presidential election? Did that represent its own challenge in terms of the amount of information out there?
So everything, so because again, we want to remain as, accuracy is so important with an app and to be trusted as a resource. And so everything is automated. So anything that, if there's an update on data.gov or on a particular social media account, so they're updated and come into the app as well. And so we didn't face that struggle. But one thing that we're really excited about is going down ballot and to have, at the, very local level as well, all elected officials represented on the app as well, and that's something we're working hard on. But yeah, no, it was really nice because we saw thousands of new users around the election because it was such a hot topic and everyone's speaking about it, and we were able to be featured in multiple multiple publications and having these, many sessions with many universities where we were speaking about Electo and how it could even be used as a teaching tool. So it was a really exciting time, but not necessarily a challenge, but just so much going on. So it was really wonderful.
Can you give us a little insight about what does it look like when you and your partner who are at the executive level sit down and evaluate your own company culture? What does it look like when you're evaluating the inclusivity of your company and your workspace? And what kinds of things are you looking at?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really important is just, especially because we have that privilege of being so small, is just even when it was just the two of us, to think about how we are interacting with each other. Really, we have equal voices, and how as we were adding more and more members to our team, we really wanted it to be a space where there wasn't really a hierarchy, but everyone's input was really important, and that we really weren't attached to any input that we as individuals, even as founders, gave to a particular topic. And just, when we're consulting, really trying to understand, what does consultation mean? When we're coming as a group, even on Zoom, when we have a particular issue, we're trying to find a solution for it that's app related or about anything, we give our opinions, but then we're not attached to them, and really want to see what is the best way for us as a group. How can we make a decision that everyone is happy with? And I think it does get harder when there are larger and larger groups, but really truly believing that everyone's input really counts, and how we can include everyone's thoughts in the way that we make decisions as we move forward. And so it's been working so far, and it's been really great. But yeah, it's hard, and I think it's about also learning from other startups or other organizations, or maybe even just teams. It could be within the education sector, within a particular institute or university, and how they've been successful, and learning from their experiences. But definitely been a process. But I think that we're fortunate that all of our team is not only diverse, but really believes that they have a place within our team, and that everyone's voice counts. And I think creating that culture from the beginning depends on kind of who we're hiring, and making sure that their culture fits with ours in the way that we want to have an inclusive culture. So I don't know if that answered your question, Anna. Great. I don't know if people that are on the chat, I don't know what your backgrounds are. If you'd like to put it in the chat so that I can have a sense as to kind of what your backgrounds are, what you're studying. I'd love to know what your interests are, to see if there's any other tips or anything I can offer as well. Awesome, elementary ed. I'll assume everyone's in elementary ed, like Kayla, since we didn't get other responses. Pre-med, but I'm super into activism. Awesome. And I think that's so wonderful, because I think regardless of what you're studying or what major you're in, I think things that you're passionate about can always go on the side, and you never know what would happen. I mean, I've always been interested in technology. I've always been interested in gender equality, and it's just been so interesting that although I was a lawyer and I was working within, in the corporate world, I was able to then transition into this role where we're creating a product that exactly, yeah, there's always an overlap. Created a product that not only is educating individuals, but also has, roots in, public affairs and the platform we're creating. I'm also, working on a lot of the legal documents, so using that legal experience in the way that we're operating our company. So I think it's really nice to have these experiences that are different and bringing them to whatever role any of you may have in the future. Yeah, there's mathematics I see as well. So yeah, really diverse crowd. This is great. Business, but I'll also be an artist. Wonderful. Great. I don't know if there are any other questions, or Sherry or Anna, if either of you have any questions for me.
I keep wondering how many times you guys have probably been approached by advertisers who are like, if you will advertise on your app, you could make this much money, when the purpose of the app is that social impact, right? You're not looking to make anything. So I'm wondering if y'all are constantly being approached by, hawks that think they can advertise with you or hope they can.
Yeah, I think we're super clear with what we're trying to do at Electo, and I think that everyone has a very clear understanding that the purpose of the app. I mean, it would defeat the purpose of the app being there if we were running ads. Because also with ads, it's hard to be unbiased because you don't know what people assume or don't assume by running a particular ad, and so it's actually the core of the product that we don't run ads, and we don't generate revenue through ads, and that the purpose of the app is just be there as a public service for individuals to use. And so when people approach us and understand it, it makes sense. It clicks that, that's the purpose behind it. And that the way that we are generating revenue is through the analytical platform, which we're also, being very careful to make sure that we're creating a product that is, again, nonpartisan, just has the facts, has the analytics and the data, and being seen as a trusted resource for that data here in Washington.
So like you, I'm looking at the broad range of disciplines that we have here in this meeting. And I'm curious if you have any advice as these young people are entering all of these different workforces and all of these different fields, what kinds of things can we be doing to help push for more inclusivity in the places where we work and the tools that we use?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, it reminds me of another call I had been on a while back, and I think it was some time back. And there was this female business leader, and she was asked a similar question. And I remember she said a quote that I really liked, and I really took away from that session. It was how we can lift as we climb, and that as we are continuing to excel and continuing to work in different spaces, to continue to have that want to lift others and to bring others under our wing, and to continue as we move forward to offer these, offer opportunities to give our thoughts and to give advice to individuals that maybe need it. And I think we learn a lot from those experiences, and it also allows others to also feel included as we try to bring more inclusivity in whatever sector or industry or role we may have, and to really think critically about the way that we think, the things we're reading. I would definitely encourage, since everyone in the audience is every week or every session that you guys have are encouraged to read an article, but I would go even deeper. Who is the author? What is the author written about? What is their background? How does any unintentional bias go into what they are writing? And I think being very conscious about what we're reading and what we're not to be critical, but I think just being very conscious is very important, so that we can have a thorough understanding of our surroundings to be able to offer thoughts about how we can be more inclusive. I think it's important to really have an understanding of what is around us.
So you guys aren't pushing out any ads. You may obviously But on the other hand, is there any way that you can track the impact of your app in terms of what legislation is passed, or if a seat changes, someone new is elected into a position? Is there any way you guys are going to be able to track that kind of impact?
So we won't be able to track impacts our app has had, like in that sense or form, because, like, for example, individuals on our app can call members of government directly through the app or email them, but then we won't see what it is that they're, we can't hear what they're having in that conversation or see what's happening. But we are in a way able to measure impact in that. For example, around the time of the election, we know that we had about 10,000 individuals that were impacted by our app, and it was right the time that we had launched. That were able to use our app to become more educated and to learn about civic engagement and civic education through our app. But I think that would be something that's more difficult to monitor, and that would mean that we'd have to follow the data of our users, and that's not something that we wanted to or analyze. Again, defeats the purpose of the app. But I hope that we've created a product that everyone wants to use and will see as a tool, and that will have a lot of positive impact. And maybe we can't assess what that exactly is, other than anecdotes or stories that individuals share with us.
So it sounds like we all definitely need to download the app, and then we need to let you know what kind of difference it's making in terms of our information, what we consume and what we understand, and possibly how we act based on that information. So yeah, I hope all of you do download this app. I have, in case you didn't notice in the chat, it's already on my phone, and I know Anna has, and you're right. Immediately, I think you'll be amazed at everything that's right there, just at your fingertip, as far as the spectrum of information that you can read. So that's amazing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sherry. And thanks for everyone that took the time out to come today. And again, if you have any thoughts on the app or just more generally and want to reach out, you can always feel free to do so.